Hey, witches. It is that time. We are back. Matt and Tara of the Scary Movie Project. We are here with another live stream, and we're talking about, guess what? Witches.
Love it. Here's a line I've wanted to use like all week because I've been thinking about it. Where are my witches at? What?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so bad, and I love it.
So let's see. We're going to start with the history of witches, and then we're going to talk about witches in media. But if you want to communicate with us, if you want to jump in and leave a comment, what you know about witches, or ask us a question, and we'll do what we can to answer it.
Because
we'll see what we got.
It's that simple, easy question to ask of what is a witch and what's the history, but the answer that could take a week and a half to or never be able to really answer, right?
Yeah, that's so true. So we're gonna like encapsulate it all into about an hour because we don't want to be here keeping you here all night and then like all weekend, because we know it's Halloween weekend and we have other things to do.
So this is like, I want to show everybody, this is one of my favorite books, right? This is from, if you guys remember, from Time Life Books back in like the late 80s. They had all these really cool books. This was one of them, Witches and Witchcraft. I used to go like check this out at the library, I think, and I used to read it all the time when I was a kid. It's very cool. It's got so much cool witch stuff in it. I have a whole series I got from eBay like a long time ago. So Mysteries of the Unknown, Witches and Witchcraft, check it out.
Yeah, my witch books are all how-to books.
Yeah, I don't have any how-tos, but I have a giant book of like the history of witchcraft. It's probably like that thick. It's a huge one. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Ooh, nice. Yeah. I have, my thickest books are like this thick, and I have a dream journal. Not a dream journal, but like a dream dictionary.
Oh yeah.
And then an herbal, like spell working with herbalism stuff, like, and they're both that thick. They're huge.
So if anyone out there does any gardening, I do a witch garden on my balcony. You do some rosemary, you grow some lavender, some thyme, you grow all those herbs out there. That's part of the witch's garden. Now you can get the poisonous plants like the nightshade and all that stuff too. The beltane, yeah. But I have a dog. I don't want my dog going out on the balcony.
Not with pets. Eating
one of those flowers. So.
Although I am
monk's
so bad with plants, I have killed 2 herb gardens already, plus a set of such a succulents. So
see, that's not very witch-like of you to do something.
It is not. I am not a green witch.
No,
definitely not.
That's too bad.
Yeah, no, I'm a mess with plants. I'm good with animals. I can keep animals alive, just not
plants.
That's
important.
Just not plants. So let's dive into the history here. So originally in the way old times, many witches or people known as witches were just natural healers or wise women, herbalists. And it became, their choice of profession became misunderstood, right? There's a couple biblical passages that mention witches. So that's like way back. I think they're both in the Old Testament. Yeah, they're both in the Old Testament.
Greek mythology too, right?
So yes, Greek mythology had Circe and some other witches. I think she was the big one. But Exodus 22:18 is the one that says, "Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live."
Yep.
And then there are other biblical passages that caution against divination, chanting, or using witches to contact the dead. But one of the earliest records of a witch in the Bible is in the book of 1 Samuel, which was written, they think, around like 930 BC to 920 BC. And that tells the story of King Saul going to the witch of Endor to summon a dead prophet, Samuel, and get his spirit to help him defeat the Philistine army. And then Samuel gets summoned and prophesies that Saul and his sons will die. And the next day, according to the Bible, his sons died in battle, and then he committed suicide. So like one of the earliest records is actually someone going and consulting a witch, even though they're like, you shouldn't suffer a witch to live.
Right.
So that's a little weird. So we'll skip to the 1400s, which is when the witch hysteria was sort of gathering steam.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of accusing single women, widows, basically women who were like not living that normal, like be a good wife and mother life.
What was not
right
technically expected of you by a society at the time, right?
Exactly. And so if you weren't like following all the rules, if you were too mouthy, or you were an herbalist, and so you were like, taking away from male doctors by having people come to you for help and stuff like that, you were a witch. And around between the years like 1500 and 1660, they say.
So can I back you up just a touch?
Oh yeah. Go back.
Read well, you can get a copy. I have actually not read this. I want to. The Hammer or Malleus Maleficarum.
I was getting there.
Okay, because that was written in like 1460 something.
You're right. It was 1468 by two Germans.
Heinrich something. It's translated to Hammer of the Witch. It's basically a witch hunting guidebook is really what it became, right?
District Bliss says, raise his hand and says too mouthy. I love it.
Okay.
Yes, District Bliss, too mouthy, both of us.
There you go. Yeah, wasn't it basically?
You're right.
It was like a witch hunter's like guidebook, yeah.
Yeah, it was an authority, and Protestants and Catholics used it to like figure out who was a witch and how to like test them and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches.
Also, if you read, there's I have read a book, The History of Witchcraft and Demonology by, I'm such an idiot and I've forgotten the title of this guy. Who's the author that wrote a lot of this stuff? Oh Lord, I'm so bad. Now I'm forgetting it.
Oh, are you talking about Cotton Mather?
No, it was. I don't think it's Cotton Mather. Maybe it was, but I think it's somebody else. But anyway, it's a great book. Read that if you get a chance to. That's a very old, hundreds and hundreds of years old.
Okay, so then between the years 1500 and 1660, they said as many as 80,000 suspected witches were put to death in Europe.
Yeah, burned at the stake.
Yeah, and 80% of them, they said they were in cahoots with the devil and filled with lust. Lusty women.
That's right.
So dangerous.
That's right.
Never want a lusty woman around. That's
right.
Trouble right there. So as witch hunts were actually like decreasing in Europe, that's when they were increasing in America, in the New World. And the first person in America to be executed for witchcraft was, I'm going to butcher this name. It's ALSE. So I'm going to say Alsa.
Okay.
Alsa Young.
I don't know the name. So
first person in America to be executed for witchcraft in Windsor, Connecticut in 1647.
Okay.
And then of course we come to the most well-known witch trials in America, 1692, Salem, Massachusetts.
I would love to speak a little bit about this. Yeah.
I love District Bliss. Lusty woman and redheads, beware. So true. Redheads were targeted too.
I was going to say, if you had been around like 400, 500 years ago, you would have been burned at the stake. It would have been lights out for you.
Yeah.
That would have been it for you.
Plus that third nipple, I mean.
Well,
Just kidding.
That's right.
But who am I? Who knows?
Okay. Yeah. So Salem witch trials. So, I mean, yeah. How deep do you want to go into that stuff? Because I'm happy to talk about that.
Okay, so we'll talk about. So they started right when Elizabeth Parris and Abigail Williams, they were 9 and 11-year-olds. They started suffering from these fits and contortions and uncontrolled screaming. Now, apparently today the theory is that they were poisoned by a fungus.
Ergot from the wheat that they think was the same thing. People thought it was werewolves too.
But this was actually when they were thinking, that caused spasms and delusions.
Yeah.
And so maybe it was ergot. And then
they
more young women started like showing symptoms of this, and they all got, mass hysteria E. And I
like that. You just make that word up.
Yeah, mass hysteria E.
E. Okay.
Just add E or ish to the end of anything, and it's a new word.
I like it.
It's my Shakespearean.
I'm cool. I'm cool
coining new words from old words.
I like it.
So they accused 3 women of witchcraft: Sarah Good, Sarah Osborne, and Tituba, who was a slave that was
Barbados,
owned by Elizabeth Parris's father. Yeah. I think she was, yeah.
Barbados, I believe.
and then she confessed to being a witch.
So don't forget this. A lot of this started, remember, by she would tell the girls these stories too. You know, these late winter cold nights in, you know, New World. There's not much to do. She would tell a lot of these stories to them, and that's where a lot of this stuff kind of got out of hand and got carried away.
Yeah, and there's this fantastic play called The Crucible.
Excellent.
Arthur Miller, I believe.
Movie with Daniel Day-Lewis and them. That's terrible, but not great.
Yeah, the play it's very good.
The
but it's about the Salem witch trials.
Yep.
And it proposes that these girls were all kind of just faking it. Like
sure, attention.
So yeah, could be that, but probably this fungus. So Tituba confessed to being a witch, and she started accusing other people of using black magic.
Yeah.
And on June 10th that year, in 1692, Bridget Bishop was the first witch to be accused. District Bliss asked if they're targeting Sarahs, and yes, I believe they were.
Yes, they were.
But they're both Sarahs with an H, so we know you're okay. Maybe that was the problem.
But if you're a redhead, then it wouldn't have mattered. So.
Naughty H. That's true. District Bliss, we know she is a redhead. So the half of District Bliss that we're talking to right now, both halves are actually redheads, but the half that I happen to know we're talking to. So Bridget Bishop was the first one to be put to death. And she was hanged at their gallows. This country,
we hanged witches. We didn't burn them. That was more of a
more
of a European
we more hanged
thing.
them. I think we did do the tying them up and throwing them in water to see if they would sink or float.
It's called swimming a witch, and we can talk about that later. Yes.
Yeah. So she was the first one, and ultimately it ended up being like about 150 people who were accused, and 18 were put to death. Yeah. And it wasn't only women. There were 6 men who were convicted and executed.
And don't forget, there were 2 dogs as well.
What?
Yes.
What?
I am not making this up. 2 dogs were executed because they were accused of witchcraft. I can't tell you the backstory of that. I've just read this multiple times that this really happened.
No, I'm not okay with this dog thing. I didn't know about that.
I'm dead serious. Oh, okay. The question about pressing. Yes. There was a man named Giles Corey.
Yes.
His wife was I don't know if his wife was executed, but he was accused of witchcraft. And
this is the perfect time because we just got a comment saying, didn't we press and drown them too?
That's what I'm replying to right now. So what happened was he was pressed. They'd lay him down and just put a bunch of weight on him. And more and more weight, it was crushing him. And they keep asking him, confess or say something, save yourself. And his answer every time was just more weight. And this went on for days with Giles Corey. And eventually his chest, was crushed and he died. But yeah, he was pressed to death. And no, he was Giles Corey. He was not where corgis come from. Although that would be a good name for a corgi.
I think she meant maybe
Corey the corgi.
I think she was back with when we were talking about the poor dogs.
Oh, okay. No, I don't
maybe know. Corgis are witches.
I couldn't tell you what kind of dogs they were that were accused. That I don't know,
isn't that what you have, a corgi?
I do.
And her name is Sadie, which to me seems like kind of a witch name.
She is. Well, she's named after one of the Manson family women.
So I think it's entirely possible that corgis are witches.
She might be.
They might be witch dogs.
We'll see on Halloween if she does anything. She hasn't in all the years I've had her, but who knows?
My dogs, Boston Terriers, they are too dumb to be witches.
Too dumb. Okay.
They are not witches. They are too silly.
So yeah, Giles Corey was pressed to death. Yeah, the rest of them were well, anyway, keep going, but I can talk more about it after that.
No. So that's all I had for Salem witch trials.
Okay.
So if you want to talk more about Salem witch trials, let's go.
Yeah, so this went on for a bit, and so okay, you've got to think there's a couple of things at play here, right? One, this is in a time where science was not big, and the reality is these people were terrified of God, and they were anything that happened, basically, a thunderstorm, okay. The crops died. Oh, God hates us. God's angry at us. The devil. It's Satan. They really thought all this stuff was that. And if they didn't pray, they were going to go to hell. I mean, these people were religious to just, beyond belief. They were praying 15 times a day. They were at church 18 times a day. Everything that happened bad was because God did this. So they were afraid of the devil. I mean, legit. And you got to remember,
like a movie we can talk a little bit about later.
Yes.
The Witch, or as my husband and I like to call it, the VV Itch.
Oh, it's so good. So you got to remember too, this is in the frontier times too, when there's a lot of Native American attacks coming from Maine and places, and people were afraid. People were very afraid of things. And also a lot of this was honestly about, these accusations came because a lot of it was disputes over land, quite frankly. That's really where a lot of this came from.
Yeah.
People who were pissed off about land, and they wanted their money and their land worth, and they would point out people and accuse them of witchcraft and figured that's the way I'll get rid of them. That's what a lot of this stuff honestly came down to. I've been reading about this stuff like my whole life. It's so fascinating to read about it because you want to believe that side of it where it's this spooky story. But yeah, the reality is it was people that didn't know science and just accuse people. Look, we accuse people every day of things nowadays. There's not a lot of difference in what happens now to a witchcraft thing, quite frankly. That's what this stuff was. So, looking back at it, once you know the facts on it, you get it. Salem, we've talked about Salem with J.W. Oker, who's a great author. He lived in, read J.W. Oker stuff if you haven't out there. He lived in Salem for a month and wrote a book about it, and we had him on to discuss that. Go visit Salem.
That was our Lords of Salem episode.
And that movie's
You're
awesome.
Looking for it.
Go to Salem, visit Salem, go see all these places. Go to where they found out finally where the Gallows Hill was, and they have a monument for it now. Go to the Salem Witch Museum and go see the tour of it. It's really cool. It's interactive.
Yeah.
They show everything about how this started. They take you through a history of what a witch is and what it's evolved into. And for someone that doesn't understand or know a lot about this, I found it incredibly enlightening because the knowledge I already had. But for someone who doesn't, I think you really enjoy this stuff. It's really misunderstood. I personally would never go to Salem at this time of year because
it's crazy.
It's crazy and it's kind of offensive in a way. You're kind of celebrating a bunch of people that were killed for no reason. Have I been to, my question, have I been to Salem? Yes, many times. I think you're kind of
I have not yet. I'm dying to go.
I think nowadays you're kind of exploiting it for this didn't even happen at Halloween time. So I get the whole witch thing, and that's where I have my struggle with it, where I know so much about the reality of it, but movies like The Witch and Lords of Salem and the story of Salem, I love that spooky aspect of it, but I know it's not real. So I don't like the cashing in on it. Salem is a wonderful historical place by itself. It doesn't need the witches, but it is Witch City, whether you want to admit that or not.
Right.
And going to meet real witches that run the stores there. The stores are amazing. You could spend just days in these places. You can never get tired of visiting these places. Visiting, you can have, spiritual readings, palm readings. You can do tarot readings in there. You can do anything you want. You could spend, like I said, days and days in there. It's a wonderful place. Learn the history, learn the real history. But yeah, it's a really cool place. Misunderstood stuff. But that's where our history of witches come, at least from our country. I haven't read like a history book for like a grade school or a high school kid, obviously in forever. I'd like to see what the blurb is about the Salem witch trials, just to get an idea of what it would teach someone now.
I don't even remember if there was one, to be honest.
I remember it being there, but I can't remember at this point what it said. I really don't remember that.
Yeah, I don't even remember if there was one when I was in school.
Because it's definitely part of American history.
Oh, yeah. So that was, what did we say? 1692? 1692.
Yeah.
So in the 1700s, this witch hunt mania sort of started dying down in the US, and laws were passed actually to help protect people from being wrongly accused and convicted of being witches. So I think they started realizing like people are just accusing any old buddy. We got to like cut this out. And like, so there were like laws that were like, if you falsely accuse someone of being a witch, you're in trouble now.
So don't forget this too. Also, when this was happening, they would put you in like Old Salem jail at the time, which you can go visit. Back then when this was happening, you were responsible for being locked up. You had to like pay to be in prison. You had to pay to suffer. Like they weren't just locking you up and leaving you in there. Like you had to pay to bail yourself out. Let's say you got locked up for 3 days of being accused. You had to then pay the town, the village of Salem, for it being in prison.
Which, if I remember correctly, often kept people in prison because they couldn't pay. So then they were imprisoned for defaulting on their debts.
That's right. That was that's again part of the accusation of the land dispute. That was part of this whole thing. That's right.
Yeah. So now I'm going to fast forward a bit to now modern day witches, which actually started in around the 1950s. Wicca started.
I was going to say with we're probably going to name her here in a moment, right? JW met her. What is her name? Like the high priestess here. What's her name?
I don't remember, but I don't think she was in the 50s either.
She's like 90
This
now,
was Gerald Gardner.
Okay, I know that name.
So there's Gardnerian witches, Wiccans, there's Alexandrian Wiccans. There are different types of Wiccans, and it really just depends on what path they follow. But many of these people are either practicing one of the paths of Wicca, or they're pagans, and not specifically Wiccans. So there's a whole there's pagans who are Wiccan, but there's also pagans who are not Wiccan. And there's pagans who are witches, and there's witches who are not pagans and pagans who are not witches. Yeah. So,
well, thank you for clearing that up. Bye.
Well, yeah, but it's a very individualized practice. It's very much like what you feel is right for you. So, yes. So for instance, I would consider myself a pagan, but I don't do a lot of spell work. So I just do a lot of meditation and revere nature.
Yes.
So yeah, so there's a lot of different kind of things there. So these people who are witches and Wiccans and pagans and druids are now. Oh yeah.
I'll just say one thing to that point, just to put a bow on that. I'm not a religious person, but if you had to make me pick something and I had to go tomorrow to do something, I would associate myself more with that as well. Only because we're 36 hours from Halloween, which is the greatest day of the year for me. And at my age, and I'm not I don't go trick or treating, obviously, but that part of me now is that old Samhain part of the year, the harvest, the dying of summer,
last harvest,
the whole I have the forest outside my house. That's part of the reason I live here. I associate so much with that. It's a part of me.
Yeah.
That's what I love about that aspect of it. So yeah, I'm in tune with it too.
Yeah. So all these people nowadays are still trying to get rid of this stereotype of witches as evil. It's getting better, but it still can be something that people kind of go when you say it. And the main tenet for witches and a lot of pagans is "and it harm none, do as ye will." Yeah. And yeah, I think a lot of that is not knowing anything about it. Okay. And also our media that we've had for so long.
That's what I meant.
Portrayed witches as scary, ugly old women. And
that's what I mean.
Think about even Snow White, right? There's the evil queen and she turns into this haggard old witch. And
she's scary.
Yeah. Frankly, even stuff like Hocus Pocus.
Great movie.
Great movie, but those witches are evil.
Yes. And that's what I meant earlier. And when
they're not glamored, they're ugly.
That's what I meant earlier, where we have that perception, those movies like The Witch and Lords of and Witches, The Witches, the Angelica Houston movie, whatever.
Yeah.
That's in our heads. That's what we, that's what, when a witch, you need to be taught. You need to relearn what the real story is, because that's what you're told it is. That's the narrative right now. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
For instance, most witches or pagans will not do spell work for what they consider dark purposes. It's for healing, protection, success in some endeavor, or to try to stop someone else from doing evil, to bind someone so they can't hurt other people.
So I'll give a quick plug to a store that I love. I know you and I both love it. 13 Magical Moons.
It's so great.
Metaphysical store in Occoquan.
Occoquan is brilliant. I love it.
Y'all got 36 hours till Halloween. I said, go take a trip to Occoquan tomorrow or Sunday to this store. 13 Magic. It's a metaphysical store. They've got all kinds of candles for different things, for sympathy, healing, love. You can get all that stuff for exactly what you're talking about right there. It's very cool.
And wherever you go in Occoquan, ask them about their ghosts, because almost every store there, the owners have a story about the ghost. that they have, like
We
about their
should.
little ghostly things.
So we should include at some point for our wonderful listeners our little piece that we put together many years ago, shouldn't we? We should link to that for everybody.
We could link to that below this video, or actually I guess we can't because it'll be gone after the live stream, but yeah, we should
We'll
at
make
some
that
point make that available
for you. Yes.
We got told a bunch of the ghost stories in Occoquan years ago. We did a little documentary about their ghost stories. It was really fun.
But to your point though about like the the spells and whatnot. But yeah, you can buy all the candles and stuff for that. I mean, I have a Samhain candle that I burn every year, that on Halloween and the day after, and like those 3 days, and I just kind of burn. It's so cool to have that stuff. I love it. Yeah.
So District Bliss photographed a horror movie in Occoquan. I love it. Wait a minute.
Oh,
I was in a horror movie that filmed in Occoquan, so we'll have to talk offline about what horror movie that was.
Yeah, we got to see this.
And see if that was the same horror movie or a different one.
Right.
So nowadays, a lot of millennials and like younger people seem to have taken up witchcraft. Whether that's as part of like a coven or a circle or just in solitary practice. And it's being seen more as a reclaiming of feminine power, even though certainly not all witches are female.
So I was going to ask about that. Yeah, I'm trying to see, does it have to do with a lot of the politics that's happened in this country over the last 4 or 5 years? Is it just women taking back what they, wanting to be what is theirs, what is totally independent of them? I think it's awesome. I'm wondering, what was the genesis of it, I guess?
I believe it has been growing since before the past 5 years.
Okay.
But I think that it definitely grew even more after the past 5 years.
Yeah.
In the past 5 years. And yeah, so there's a lot more, there's also a lot more of LGBTQ people, I think, who are drawn to it as a religion or a spirituality, because it's much more open to people of all kinds.
Right.
So there's that as well. And really, when it comes down to it, witches, whether they're actual or whether they're just accused, they still face persecution and death in parts of the world. Okay.
So
in Papua New Guinea.
Okay. I'll let you say that, but I was going to, you're probably going to make, you're going to make my point for me. So go ahead, I think.
So in Papua New Guinea, since 2010, several men and women have been accused of using witchcraft and have been beaten and killed, including a young mother who was burned alive. Yep. So, and this has occurred in Africa, South America, the Middle East, in immigrant communities in Europe and the United States. So there's still a lot of misunderstanding and fear surrounding
that's the same
witches
thing
and
you said that was exactly what I was going to say. I've heard from people stories in Africa. I know people I've worked with who have said they have counterparts that they speak with normally, and some days they're not available. I'm sorry, I was out because my neighbor accused me of witchcraft, and it's like, for us, it's like, wow, did we rewind to 1692? Well, no, because the reality is that actually is happening in other places. Yes, it is alive and well.
Yeah,
sadly,
it's unfortunately still alive and well, although it is becoming more accepted in the U.S. And I think in Canada and like our and in Europe as well. I think you were talking about in the past 5 years, there was a group of witches who put a hex on Donald Trump to lose an election or something like that. Like,
I would not be
years
surprised.
ago.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So yeah, there's a lot of witchcraft has also been really tied up more recently in a lot of protesting and demonstrations and stuff like that, because people feel that it's their responsibility to protest, especially for stuff like ecology, to keep the world safe,
climate change and things like
that. Yeah, exactly.
Sure.
So that's basically the history part. Do you have anything more in that area?
I'll just, we were going to talk about like persecution and I think you mentioned one thing about, I mentioned swimming a witch. So
right.
The way they tortured these people, I mean, we don't have to go deep into it, but I'll just, they did some pretty terrible stuff. Right. So when I was in Romania, in Transylvania, I went to Bran Castle, and I don't know if they still have it there, but for like $10, $15 extra, you can pay. They have a torture chamber set up in the castle, and they have actual instruments from these torture devices from hundreds of years ago. They have an Iron Maiden. They have the wheel they used to break you on. I mean, I'll explain some of it. They would have, the wheel is an actual wheel, wooden wheel with spokes. They would put you on it, and they would slip you through, and they would break your bones on it, and they'd leave you hanging on it. They had in the castle. They have a rack, the rack that would stretch you out and separate your arms and break your bones. The knee crushers.
They would pop right out of the socket, right? Your arms and legs.
They'd tie you and they'd roll you, and it would just stretch you. They had the knee splitters and stuff. There were the spikes they'd crunch into your hands and your arms. The swimming a witch, they'd throw you in the water. If you sank and drowned, basically, hey, guess what? You're innocent. Oh, but you're dead. If you floated,
you win. You're innocent.
Yeah. So they did things like that. Swimming a witch, it's called. The torture stuff was
District Bliss asked if you pay for seeing it or for being tortured when you went to
there was no
torture museum.
There was no actual torture part. I only paid to see it, but to see this stuff actually, like, put your hands on this stuff was pretty amazing to see this stuff. And this is real deal stuff here. All this stuff, they tortured people. They did awful things to people, burning them at the stake. You name it. I mean, if you look up things like Inquisition and witch trials, it's like watching a Saw movie. Like, the way they just come up with these deaths is incredible. And they did this stuff to people. And, after the Salem witch trials, they finally found the Gallows Hill. And now, 300 whatever years later, they finally realized how awful these things were. And they've pardoned everybody. When you go to Salem, go to the old burial ground where they, the little plaques for everyone, there's memorials for everyone that was executed. So they've tried to make peace with that, and they've tried to, make up for that. But the amount of people that were killed and the devices and the way they killed these people was, like, just unimaginable. Think about these prisons you see, like in, Abu Ghraib or places like that nowadays. It's kind of like what was happening. And this was happening, like, normally, and it was, like, accepted, and it was, it was not a problem. They thought they were doing the right thing, quite frankly.
Yeah. They were proud of themselves.
They were. And that was
doing this stuff. I mean,
real deal stuff.
Almost unimaginable.
Yeah. And you're talking about, what is it now? And it's so modern now. And we'll get into shows in a minute, but, like, article I read, about like the new Sabrina that was on Netflix, I guess.
Yep.
With what's her face that we love from
Kiernan Shipka.
From Blackcoat's daughter.
Blackcoat's daughter and Mad Men.
Yes. Now, I have not seen this new Sabrina. I want to. I used to have a huge crush.
So good.
So I used to have a huge crush on Melissa Joan Hart. So I used to watch the original awful Sabrina the Witch show.
You would.
So I used to watch that terrible show, which was corny, of course. But, oh, by the way, I heard on Good Morning America, that house that they, the show that was in the house that was in the show is for sale. It's in New Jersey. So if you want to buy it, go ahead.
Wait, the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina or the 90s Sabrina?
The 90s cheesy, the original cheesy show.
Aw, cute.
Yeah. So, she's in that, I guess, and this new one is supposed to be scary, right? And look at a movie like...
it's still fun, but it's, like, darker.
It's violent, too, from what I understand, right? So...
Yeah, somewhat.
But yeah, that's, it's definitely, I don't want to sound so lame to say the term girl power, but it's just totally, it really is, though. And it's awesome. Like, I'd love to see that.
The new one, I think the old one was very much like a cutesy, like almost like the 50s or 60s, whenever it was, Bewitched. Like, it's like this cute little, like, she's just a teen witch and she has a talking cat and it's so cute.
But she's trying to, like,
and they kind of almost took the, like, they just didn't address all this stuff about people being scared of witches. They just, like, ignored all that and just glossed it over.
But it was her trying to find her way as a witch. I mean, that was, like, the story.
Oh, yeah.
But
they were using that more as, like,
this was a program on TG
story.
It was on, like, TGIF, though. This was not teaching anyone an actual
lesson. Yeah.
Whereas,
and then Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is actually a very feminist and LGBTQ positive show.
Yeah.
So it's much more kind of radical, honestly, than of course, I mean, pretty much like a snow cone is more radical than the 90s Sabrina, but, but Chilling Adventures of Sabrina is definitely more radical, darker, more adult.
And it's cool that they made an update for that. So folks that have watched, like I said, I'm guilty. I got to watch this thing. But it's cool that they did that so it can reach a whole new audience. But for someone like you and me who remembers the show, we can watch it and see something different.
Yeah. And apparently I believe it's closer to the original comics.
It was a comic. That's right.
So yeah, I believe the Chilling Adventures, the new one, is closer to the comic. Which comics have always been able to be much more subversive than TV. They could do a lot of stuff, I think, before TV could, just like horror can be much more subversive and do a lot of things before the rest of TV and movies can.
Sure.
So like if horror is kind of on that bleeding edge, I think comic books maybe even bleedinger edge.
Even bloodier.
Yeah.
Bloodier edge. But yeah, I think that,
yes, Hyper 3 Cube, the witches portrayed in Supernatural.
So I'm gonna be raising my hand as a boob again here, and I've seen like maybe 1 or 2 episodes of Supernatural. That was never a show I got into, so I can't comment on that one.
Yeah, well, Supernatural, really, I love the show, but it really plays off a very Christian view of the world. I mean, there's angels and there's demons, and they are fighting for the world. I mean, that's the whole setting of the show, right?
It's like that line in Lords of Salem, there's a war being waged in heaven between good and evil, right?
Right. I mean, that's exactly like the whole background for the show Supernatural.
Okay.
So God, it's been so long since I've seen this.
Was this a W? Was this a W? Was this a W?
CW.
CW. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. CW show.
You think of those shows as corny because they're for like, high school kids at the time, but if it's making that message, then, all more power to it. Cool. That's great.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they were definitely much darker. Back in the 90s again, we also had The Craft.
Okay. I love that movie.
I love The Craft.
And I'll mention again, I always thought I'm Mr. John Hart. What's her face that played the new, I don't remember the character's name, but the girl that shows up that moves in.
Oh yeah.
The new girl. I had the biggest crush on her when that movie came out. Yeah. That was a great movie. No, that's a great movie though, because that is like totally female witch power.
Well,
you got Neve Campbell. You got that actress. What's her face that was in
Fairuza Balk?
Yes, and the other one she was in Half Baked. What is her name? What is the actress's name? I just remember from Half Baked. I'm sorry, that's all I can think of her from. But they're all great. They're all really good. And I love that movie.
But the thing with that, even in the 90s, even though it was a lot about these young women finding their power, right? And it was pretty feminist because they're like dishing out revenge to the bad dudes.
Yeah, because they all have these problems and so it's.
But witchcraft was still shown as dangerous.
Yes, right.
Right. It was shown as very seductive, and you could get seduced by the power.
Yeah.
And
well, it leads to trouble.
And it causes a lot of trouble, right?
Yeah,
so I think even in The Craft, like it's still not as accurate as we would like it to be.
So let me ask this one. We're obviously moving into our, media at this point, part of it. I have not seen this movie, and I probably feel like a goon because of it. Practical Magic.
I love Practical Magic.
I've never seen it, but I know that's a popular one, right? That's a good one, isn't it? Yeah. Is that accurate or is it cheesy?
Honestly, I think that very much.
That's a star-studded cast in that too.
That very much, I feel like, showed magic as being sort of neutral and like it is what you use it for, or what, because like when there are still spells that they're not supposed to do. Like the mothers have a spell, or the aunts have a spell that will bring back someone from the dead, and they never do it.
Okay.
Like they never want to do it because people come back wrong.
Like just watch Pet Sematary.
Right. It's that exact same kind of thing. Yeah. And so the girls do that, but the guy is already a bad dude who they try to bring back because they kill him accidentally. And so he gets even worse. And it's really it's a bad thing, but it's not bad because just magic itself is always bad and witches are always bad. Oh yes, Hyper 3 Cube, Witches of
Oh.
Eastwick is fantastic.
I was gonna get to that as well. Yeah, that that is a good one. But yeah,
Yeah.
Practical Magic is yeah. So did you watch Charmed when it was on the series then too?
I watched some, but that still
I've
seems
seen a
to
handful.
be that still seems to be really trading on Christian morality and trappings.
I've
The
seen
white lighter and stuff. Like
probably seen 10 episodes. I definitely remember it, and that was what's her face from 90210 was on it, and then I mean yeah, it had a good cast on there as well. I remember, but yeah, I never got into it.
I do want to talk about Hyper 3 Q brought up the Witches of Eastwick, and I do want to
Sure.
talk about that because
Please.
that is another one where, and that of course was the book first by John Updike, and it is another one where, ostensibly it's about these women being seduced by the devil, but
Jack Nicholson, right?
Jack Nicholson, yes, but they are still finding their female empowerment, and actually in the end they get one over on him.
God, I haven't seen that movie in a long time. That's a good movie. I'm gonna watch
the book is fantastic. The book is so good.
I've not read that. I gotta read that.
Yeah, the book is so good. So yeah, I just wanted to go back to that for a second and like make sure that we touched on that is very female empowerment, but it's still like being seduced by the devil and then like finding your own power separate from him.
Yeah.
In a way. So yeah, I thought that one had a very interesting progression to it, and for the female characters in it. But yeah, Charmed, I think, like we were saying, has some more Christian. It seems more Christian based, even though they're witches.
Didn't they do a reboot of the series recently?
Yeah, which I've not seen.
I haven't seen it either.
I've not seen that.
So there's
there's also the Witches in Buffy.
Right.
So that was in that like 90s, early 2000s.
I never was a fan of that program either, but
I love that show.
What's her face in the American Pie movies is the witch in Buffy, right?
Yep, Willow. Yeah, her character name is Willow.
Okay.
And
I don't remember the actress's name either. I can't remember her name.
And she's
the Bandcamp girl from American Pie.
She is. Yeah, she is. I can't remember the actress's name right now. I know it, but I can't think of it. But Willow,
I think she's a redhead too, by the way.
She is a redhead.
There you go.
And Buffy brought in the sort of LGBTQ aspect to witchcraft. They also showed witchcraft as being a good nature-based religion, but Willow does also end up getting sort of seduced by a dark side.
Seduced by the dark side? Like Anakin Skywalker?
At some point.
Sorry, wrong topic.
Yeah. Oh, yes. District Bliss. Allison Hannigan.
Oh, is that her name?
Yeah, that's her name.
Cool.
So, she has a girlfriend who she practices with, whose name is Tara.
There you go.
So there you go. So they sort of brought in a lot more of the, like, it's a nature-based religion. It's kind, it's good, but Willow does sort of get seduced by the power still at one point, which, I mean, it's a show, right? You have to like, but also it's a show and you have to go into the, like, there has to be some drama, right? Mm-hmm. Or why is it there?
Right.
So yeah, I thought Buffy did actually a pretty good one with it.
Okay. All right. So, movie-wise, I think we talked about like TV shows. I think we kind of nailed. I feel like we nailed most of them. If I'm forgetting something, tell us. But so I'm thinking of like older and then moving forward. I'm just gonna throw like two of them out there to go with, and then we'll see from there. Black Sunday, 1960.
Black Sunday. Yeah.
And then how about like Suspiria is maybe in the 70s?
Well, all three of those Giallo films, Suspiria is one of the three, and Lacrimosa, and I can't remember the name of the third one right now. But they all deal with witches.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking maybe,
and they are very dark, evil witches.
Most well known, maybe that was.
Oh, and William Bond, of course, William Bond, the Lords of Salem.
Oh, Bill's okay, very good. Well, I mean, Lords of Salem is like, for me, I mean, that is like, because it's a Rob Zombie movie. So yeah, real quick, I'll just say on Lords of Salem. You can say what you want about Rob Zombie stuff. He got crushed for Halloween. House of a Thousand Corpses is just a remake of Texas, whatever. Lords of Salem is a very different film, and I think it's his masterpiece. Honestly, I am in love with that movie. That movie is, if I were to make a movie about witches, that is literally like he went inside my brain and like took all my thoughts, and that is what I would have put on screen if I had directed this. That is really what it is.
But they are definitely bad witches.
They are stereotypical evil witches that we talked about earlier. They are bad.
I love them. Don't get me wrong, but they are bad witches.
Dee Wallace and what's her face, Meg Foster and everything. They're outstanding, and I love that movie. I think it's incredibly creepy. It's so well done. It's almost Stanley Kubrick like, and it's like just symmetry. And they shot it in Salem, and it's just I love it. Anyway, I'll leave that one alone.
Okay, and we have to address this one. Hyper 3 Cube has taken us back to the witches in Wizard of Oz. Okay,
so I mean that's like your classic green-faced, pointy-nosed witch riding a broom. Like that's the classic bad witch.
Good witch, Glenda the Good Witch.
Oh yes, Glenda.
But I feel like Glenda, I mean, yes, they call her a good witch, but I feel like she's almost more of a fairy.
Yeah, she is kind of
in a way. Like she's kind of like, she has her little fairy wand and like
I can
I feel like she's more of like a fairy godmother type of dealio. But I mean, they definitely call her a witch, and there is a good one.
Yeah. So yeah,
I think again that is talking about like I think that represents very much the duality that stereotypically people see in women, right? There's the wife, the mother, the saint, the virgin, and then there's the harlot, the crone, the evil, the seductress. Yeah. So I feel like they're in a way like playing off that dichotomy there.
So that, the seductress and the hag thing, I think is a good opening to one I want to talk about that. I don't really get scared watching scary movies anymore. I've just seen them so much. 2 points. I saw the Blair Witch Project opening night in July of 1999. Let me reference that date on purpose, because at the time we were told this was true. Okay. We had not been told this was phony. I went into that movie. I'm going to tell you, I did not sleep that night. I'm not lying. I have never been so scared after a movie. I was literally up until the sun rose that morning. That movie terrified me, and I've been in love with it ever since. I absolutely adore that movie. I think it's fabulous. It's not even so much about a witch necessarily. It's more about, friends fighting and falling apart, whatever. But the great thing is we never see the witch. We never see this witch. We are terrified of her. I am terrified of thinking of her right now, but we never see this person. This could be a guy. We don't really know who the Blair, Ellie Kedward, whatever her name was. We never see her. It's one of my favorite top 3 horror movies of all time. Favorite movies in general. I love it to death. And then I would say the seductress hag thing, The Witch, that came out in 2016.
Yes.
That movie in the theater, when the scene where she's signing her life, or her signing the devil's book, and he has his hand behind her and he's, saying, "Would you like to live deliciously?" All the hair started standing up on the back of my neck.
Oh yeah. Oh, his voice is so creepy. It's so good.
It's this masterpiece of a movie because this guy, Robert Eggers, put every ounce of his soul into this. He shot this movie up in Canada. He had the houses built from scratch to be complete reproductions of houses that would have been built at that time. The clothing, the voice, it's like a perfect movie, and it's terrifying, and it's about a lot of things. But those scenes where the boy follows her into the woods, she's this beautiful naked young woman,
but we've already seen her
as the hag,
as this scary old crone.
So he brings those both in, right? So it's like we see that part of the evil witch. That movie's very much about that. It's about a lot of things.
But I feel like at the same time, he, so here we go. We're going to do what we do and spoil this whole movie. Sorry, guys, if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah.
Thomason, the main character, the young girl.
Isn't that a great name, by the way?
I love that name.
I'm thinking if I need 2 dogs, 2 female, and name them Thomason and Lenore. What do you think?
Oh, there you go. Thomason and Lenore. I like it.
Yeah.
But what happened to Annabelle Lee and Lenore?
3 dogs.
Okay. So I think in a way, even though it shows the like bad witches and the witches are evil in it,
Right.
it's very feminist because
it's
you're
incredibly.
seeing how she's
Look
in
at the
this
end of it.
patriarchal, extremely oppressive society
Look at the end of
that
the film.
is far, far more oppressive and horrible to women, and especially young, attractive women, because they are seen as the font of sin. And
that was that puritanical stuff that happened back. That was the thing back then. If you looked at someone the wrong way, it was lust, and you have to go say 27 Hail Marys and whatever. Right?
And if a man looked at you the wrong way, even if you didn't do anything, it was lust and it was your fault.
Yes.
So she is really throughout almost the whole movie, she does nothing wrong pretty much.
There's
like,
so much
everybody around her is doing things that are wrong and that are sinful.
Burden on her that she seems to have, and it's just like, it like you said, it's about a lot of stuff. It's an amazing. I love it to death. I don't own a lot of Blu-rays, very few. That is one of the ones I own because it is gorgeous.
Yeah. And so, but at the end, when she signs her name in the book,
yes, I love it. And
she goes off into the forest, and that's the first time at the end that you see joy. She is on her face.
She is who she is. I think there's a scene when she signs that book, and then at the end, I think I mentioned this a lot on our episodes. I always like in the movies like this to see something ridiculous done well. How would signing the devil's book in the presence of Satan look? Right? Mm-hmm. It's a silly idea, but it's done. Like I said, the hair was standing up. It was done. Like I wanted to get up and like applaud, bravo! Like that was so perfect. Mm-hmm. And then her, at the Sabbath, at the crossroads. Oh, that's one thing too. The Sabbath, the witch's Sabbath. Yep. I have a painting. It's actually right above me.
Oh yeah, that's is that Waterhouse?
Francisco Goya. It's by Goya.
Oh, Goya. Okay,
it's called The Witch's Sabbath. And that was a Sabbath is of course, basically a blasphemous black mass of a Christian, or whatever other ceremony. Getting naked, eating children. I mean, you name it, what they would do. Did it really happen? Who the hell knows? That's all kind of conjecture. We don't know if that's true, but.
So let's see, we got a couple questions here. Hyper 3 Cube wants to know what our thoughts on the old hag being associated with sleep paralysis is, which I am not as familiar with like the theories on that, but
I don't know.
My brain goes to is the Salem witch trials and the young girls having fits and things and saying that, oh, like, remember you always saw she sits upon me, she sits upon my chest. Mm-hmm. That was like something that people would say that like that whoever it was sitting on their chest. And so it makes me think that may be associated with sleep paralysis because of this witchcraft, these accusations.
Yeah.
That could be. I would really like to do a live stream on the whole sleep paralysis and all that stuff, because I think it could be really creepy.
Spectral evidence.
And really cool, really interesting.
I agree. Does that go with that spectral evidence that they used in that, of course, when they would have fits and they would let that stuff go in court? It was crazy.
Yeah. And then let's see.
Bill asked about Black Sunday. Yeah. We love Black Sunday. Yeah. Black Sunday is great.
And I think, it's been so long since I've seen it, but I think Black Sunday played on that sort of dichotomy too, on that. I have said dichotomy more in this hour than I have said it
in your whole life.
In ever. So just so y'all know.
Yeah.
So I think it traded on that too, that sort of the good girl and the bad girl.
Yeah.
That it sort of played on that as well.
I just love, those old, 50s, 60s movies that has the opening. It's that opening, you're in this, like, where are you in the world with, in this, the fields, and they have the torches and they're tying her to the stake and they smash the mask, and it's just like it's such a great old spooky movie. I haven't seen it in a long time too, but it is good. It is good.
I am thinking about the right movie, right? The witch has black hair.
Yep, she comes back from after being killed by her brother.
And then later there's the blonde girl.
Yes, I think.
Am I thinking of the right movie?
I think you are.
Yeah. Okay. I'm like, wait, am I losing my mind?
No.
Possible.
With what's her face? Who's the actress? And I'm blanking and we're forgetting this movie now, what her name is. But yeah, I
is
love.
it Barbara Steele?
There you go, Barbara Steele.
And she plays both.
I think she's still alive, but she's in her 80s or 90s, I would think at this point. I gotta look that up. Okay, so the witch, Lords of Salem. Trying to think, what else do I love that's witch related? I mean, I don't really know. Yeah, we talked about The Craft. We love The Craft. I think we touched on.
We talked about The Craft.
I think we touched on the ones we liked them. Oh, sorry. American Horror Story Coven. For those of you that watch it,
which I love.
That was season 3. That was my favorite season. I think was Hotel, but I think this was my second favorite.
Coven's my favorite.
This was really good. I enjoyed it a lot.
100% Coven is my favorite.
Yep, they live down in New Orleans. They have the house full of witches. They all have different powers. They can move from place to place. I thought it was so cool. Acting is great. Having the Supreme. I love that. With Sarah Paulson is such a great actress.
I thought it was interesting though that as Wicca and paganism and witchcraft
Stevie
are
Nicks.
such Stevie Nicks, but they're such decentralized kinds of religions. They are definitely not organized religion so much as like the way Christianity is, but they turned it into kind of an organized religion for AHS Coven. That they sort of made it more centralized and more of a structured religion than I feel like it really is. Even though in Wicca there are degrees and there will be you will be, a priestess or a high priestess. It will be in a smaller group, usually in a smaller circle.
Yeah.
There's not as much of there's not like a pope.
No. The drive around. There should be, and you could have a witch mobile, like a
the witch mobile, like drive around and be like. You would need like a hole in it for the witch hat to come out. Hat.
Well, talk about us being yeah, I know, right? Oh. Yeah, so Coven was awesome. I loved watching Coven. That was really, really good. I'm glad they did that.
Oh, Witch Hazel from Looney Tunes. Yes, Hyper 3 Cube. Oh, Cube.
Okay. There you go.
Oh my gosh, Witch Hazel from Looney Tunes.
So Bewitched, it was on TV, and of course, now if you go to Salem, you go see the statue that they have outside of Bewitched. That they filmed an episode there. They tie that together.
Yeah.
But Bewitched was more of that kind of like I Dream of Jeannie thing, or it was like serving a man kind of thing. I don't know, but
like all the stuff she's doing is trying to help her husband. Right, she's not a very woke witch.
Woke. There you go. Stay woke.
Yeah, she's not a very woke witch, but she does like plot a little with her mother. With his mother-in-law, to help him behind his back and stuff.
Did they make a movie? Nicole Kidman, was that recently? Didn't they?
They did make it, not very recently. It was several years ago. Okay, but they did make one with. It was okay.
Yeah, I never saw it, but
it was okay.
Like I said, this is a topic that could go on forever and ever, quite frankly. Mm-hmm. But yeah, those are my favorite movies, at least on that, and my favorite shows about it. Book-wise, I like to read actual historical stuff about like witch trials and things like that. I love to read that stuff. I've read a couple books on the trials. I've learned a bunch of stuff from it. Of course, I'll plug it again. My favorite awesome Time Life book, which is Witchcraft. I don't read a lot. I don't read a lot. Like you have the how-to books or the whatever. I don't read a lot of that stuff.
Yeah.
I always mention I love Stephen King. I don't think he's done a lot of witch stuff necessarily. But
not that I can think of.
There's plenty of stuff you can read out there, obviously. But yeah, it's a fascinating subject. And I think it's one of those things where I think if you don't know enough about it, don't be ignorant about it. Go learn about it. Have your view of it. The movies.
He is old school and he passed away many years ago. But Scott Cunningham is a great author in the how to guide to Wicca kind of books.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, there you go. There's that. Oh, should we include Aleister Crowley in any of this? Is he?
Well, I mean, he would call himself more of a Satanist, wouldn't he? So,
or a psychic, maybe, or I don't even know what you. But
we're gonna have to do a live stream on him too, and just look into him more. Just so that we can research him more and then blab about him for a while.
he was he was a pretty interesting person.
Yeah,
That's
he
for
was an
sure.
interesting dude.
But yeah, you know what? I think the thing for me, if you want to have your view of your witch be, the hag on the broomstick, cool. I would say learn about it. I would say go visit Salem, go learn those things, learn your history of it, and then make your mind up about it. But
Yeah.
Look, the fact that we love these movies that deals with, the scary witch that is evil and puts a spell on you and murders you and kills your crops and whatever, and eat your children. Like that's just kind of the way it is. And, the feminist movement and power and, there's so many pieces to it. It's like we said at the beginning, it's a simple question of what is a witch, but God, if that's the hardest answer in the whole world, right? So.
Oh, geez. Before we go, Ellen Lolich asks, for modern day witches, where do the costumes come from? Like the tall hat, the cape, the flying on a broom. And it's been so long, but I used to know sort of where those all came from. I think the tall hat used to be more common.
So the broom is a sign of like home and hearth, and really that's about, they thought, a witch could fly somewhere, and just kind of became, that was a symbol that was with them because they were the ones at home, and that kind of just turned into a device, like familiars and witches. We didn't talk about that. Familiars, cats, owls.
Oh yeah, we didn't even get into familiars. Oh my gosh,
different
and
things
it's already
like that
9:01.
That would follow you around. So that was one thing into it too that goes with it. But yeah. What was real quick here? Let me see.
Oh, you know what TV show we didn't even talk about too? That's pretty interesting is the TV show Salem. It's kind of about. It's kind of like the Salem witch trials, but they really are witches.
I don't think I liked that. I think I saw an episode and couldn't get into it. I think I remember it though, but I don't think I liked it. But okay, give it a. Don't listen to me though. Go give it a shot. Like I said, we could go on forever. So I'm going to say one thing real fast here. This is a much needed. I want to add this. This is one of the more important things I wanted to say. Was this stream that we're doing now? This was actually an idea that I kind of came up with years ago. I wanted to have kind of a broadcast about this that was going to really be 2 episodes because we have so much we want to encompass in this, right? And I had a group of some folks that were going to help me with it. We ended up not doing it. It's fine. We moved on to do this now on this end, but it's finally come to fruition after this. So a lot of the stuff came from some people. So I want to thank, if they're listening, Megan Loney, Rachel Sullivan, Emily Cole, and very importantly, Emily Fornoff. I want to thank those fine women who are going to help me with this. They gave us a lot of content for this. A lot of the stuff we talked about, the articles. Thank you very much to all of you for this. This was a big part. You guys helped us tremendously with this. So thank you. And I will say
with those articles, the 2 that I think at least I pulled most from were one on history.com called Witches, Real Origins, Hunts and Trials. And one in the Atlantic called Inside Paganism, The Many Faces of the Occult.
There you go. Yeah.
So
there's a lot of good stuff. So yeah, I'm telling you, man, this is an unending, never ending kind of thing you can go down the hole on. So yeah, look up stuff, find out stuff. It's awesome. And read more about it. And like I said, if you guys want, I'll do one of these again. I'll go even deeper into this stuff if you really want. I'm happy to. And of course, part of the one I was saying, one of those things like flying a broom or whatever it was. Part of that was a salve that they used to say they would put on themselves. That would make
flying ointment.
That would make them be able to fly, and the broom kind of went with that.
So apparently, what it really did was make them, I guess, like maybe hallucinate, but like maybe have like more. It was the flying was more of an out of body experience kind of thing. So yeah. Well, thank you guys for joining us while we talked about witches because we love them.
Yes, we do.
All forms of them. We love witches.
We love them all.
So thank you for being with us. You can follow us subscribe, follow on anywhere you get podcasts, pretty much. Apple, Spotify, all those places. And you can, what else? You can go to our website, thescarymovieproject.com. And you can email us ideas or more info you have about witches or questions or whatever at thescarymovieproject@gmail.com. And you can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Scary Movie Project. Peace out.
Don't forget, we're a day away from Halloween. I'm wishing everybody have a wonderful Halloween. Please have fun. Eat pumpkin flavored, watch scary movies, go trick or treating, go for a walk in nature. Have a great time. Have a great time.
Happy Halloween and happy Samhain.
Yes, very much.